Right now, find the quietest room in your house and sit in it for 10 minutes. No phone, no music, no voices. Most people can't do it. Some people start to panic before the 10 minutes are even up. But the real answer to why is far stranger than boredom. Because your brain isn't built for silence. It's built for noise. And when you take the noise away, something inside you starts to change. In 1951, a psychologist named Donald Hebb at McGill University wanted to know what would happen to a person who experienced almost nothing at all. No sound, no light, no touch. He built a small soundproof chamber, fitted volunteers with translucent goggles that let in light but no shapes, and padded their arms with cardboard cuffs so they couldn't feel their own hands. Then he paid college students good money to lie there and do nothing. Most of them couldn't last 2 days. Hebb expected boredom. What he got was something closer to a psychiatric event. Within hours, the students lost track of time. Within a day, many of them couldn't think in a straight line anymore. Their thoughts drifted, looped, collapsed into fragments. And then came the part nobody had predicted. They started to hallucinate. Not vague shapes, detailed scenes. One student described a procession of squirrels marching over his shoulder, carrying sacks on their backs. Another saw a parade of eyeglasses floating past him in the dark. Some heard full orchestras playing music that didn't exist. Some felt phantom hands gripping their own. Here's the part that should unsettle you. These weren't unstable people. They were healthy university students, screened in advance, paid volunteers in a perfectly safe room. Nothing was attacking them. Nothing was hurting them. The only thing missing was information. But the hallucinations weren't the strangest thing silence did to them. That came later, after the chamber, after the lights came back on. Some students walked out and described the walls of the hallway bending. Others said the floor seemed to tilt under them for hours. A few couldn't read a simple sentence without the words sliding around on the page. Their brains had spent 2 days guessing at a world with no way to check those guesses. And even once real input returned, it took time for reality to overrule the habit of guessing wrong. So why does silence do this to you? Why silence can feel uncomfortable even when nothing is wrong? Your brain evolved to process threat, not emptiness. For your ancestors, every rustle and distant call carried information they needed to survive. A brain that went quiet wasn't relaxed, it was in danger, because real silence on the savannah usually meant a predator had already gotten close. Hunters still use this today. Dead silence in a forest is the signal to freeze, not the signal to feel calm. Your nervous system inherited that wiring. It never stops scanning, predicting, filling gaps with its best guess about what should be there. Neuroscientists call this predictive processing. Take away the input, and the guessing machine doesn't shut off. It just stops getting corrected. That's what happened to Hebb's students. Their brains kept generating a world. There was nothing left to check it against. A decade later, a physician named John C. Lilly took this idea somewhere even stranger. Lilly built what he called an isolation chamber, a lightless, soundproof chamber filled with warm salt water dense enough to float a human body without effort. No sound, no light, no gravity, no temperature difference between his skin and the water around him, as close to total sensory absence as a human being could survive. And what came back out the other side read like fiction. Vivid, lucid dreaming while fully conscious, a sense of leaving his own body, full conversations with presences that by every measure were not really there. Lilly came to believe the tank had stripped away the one thing keeping his mind tethered to reality, and what was left underneath was something far stranger than he expected. Modern researchers don't go nearly as far as Lilly did, but they didn't dismiss the tank either. A psychologist named Peter Sufeld at the University of British Columbia ran careful, controlled studies on what he renamed REST, Restricted Environmental Stimulation Therapy. Same basic idea as Lilly's tank, stripped of the mysticism. Volunteers floated in darkness and silence, and Sufeld measured what happened to their stress hormones, their pain tolerance, their mood. His findings split the picture in two. In short, controlled doses, sensory reduction looked almost like the opposite of Hebb's chamber. Stress hormones dropped, pain thresholds rose, people came out calmer, sometimes able to break habits like smoking that had resisted every other method. The same absence of input that shattered Hebb's students, limited to an hour and ended on the subject's own terms, looked less like a breakdown and more like a reset. So which is it? Does silence break your mind, or does it heal it? The difference is control. Hebb's subjects didn't know when the isolation would end. Their bodies were restrained. The chamber was something being done to them. Seufeld's floaters knew they could open the tank door anytime they wanted. The exact same silence, the exact same darkness produced panic in one room and peace in the other. Because your nervous system isn't responding to the silence itself. It's responding to whether the silence feels safe. This same mechanism is running in your life right now, just at a smaller scale. Think about why most people reach for their phone the instant a room goes quiet. You are not addicted to content. You are managing a nervous system that still treats unbroken silence as a signal worth investigating, even in your own kitchen. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and the world sounded quieter than it should. Not silent, just thinner, like something had been subtracted from it. For people who experience sudden hearing loss, this isn't imagination. It's the first symptom, and what often follows is even stranger. Many of them start hearing sound that isn't there at all. Ringing, buzzing, sometimes music or voices, a condition called tinnitus. For decades, researchers assumed this was a problem in the ear. Brain imaging changed that. In many cases, the auditory cortex, the part of your brain that processes sound, doesn't go quiet when the ears stop sending signals. It turns up its own internal gain, searching harder for input that no longer arrives, and in that search, it starts generating sound from nothing. Smaller scale, same Hebb's chamber logic. Take away real input, and the brain doesn't stay empty. It builds the missing piece itself. Even your own dreams may run on a version of this same principle, your visual cortex staying busy during the total blackout of sleep, so it never sits in true silence at all. So maybe the question was never really about silence. Maybe it's about how comfortable you are with absence of any kind. An empty room, an empty inbox, an empty evening with nothing scheduled. Modern life has quietly trained you to treat all of those empty spaces the way Hebb's chamber trained its volunteers to treat true sensory blankness, as something to escape rather than something to sit inside. The next time you open your phone without thinking, ask yourself a question. Were you looking for information, or were you escaping silence? Hebb's students lasted, on average, less than 2 days in total silence before they begged to leave. You probably wouldn't last 2 hours without checking your phone in a quiet room. And it isn't because you're weak. It's because somewhere between a soundproof chamber at McGill and the one in your own house, your brain learned the same lesson all over again. Silence isn't empty. It's a void your own mind will rush to occupy, with squirrels carrying sacks, with orchestras that don't exist, with a ring in your ears that has no source, with anything at all, rather than nothing. So go back to that quiet room. Sit there again, but this time don't reach for anything. Just notice what your mind starts to manufacture in the gap. That isn't your imagination running wild. That's the same ancient circuitry that once kept your ancestors alive in the dark, still running, still guessing, still filling every silence with a world, whether or not the world asked for one.